Aditya Digital Network presents the longest running episodic talk show in India in association with the Dusra.net, India's number one and only sports, education, and entertainment, carrying with the tradition to name the most bizarre of things as addiction. Now, online shopping has been labeled as addiction as well as mental illness, but we need to understand what is the propensity to name everything that is not traditional or not the usual way as addiction, which in turn becomes mental illness. In fact, carrying on with the contemporary times, anything online is now equivalent to Frankenstein's monster. That is this unknown figure lurking in the shadows, looking to exploit one's weaknesses and the human gullibility to put everything online first and then cry about that our information is being stolen or being sold is such an irony in itself. First, we put our profiles, our pictures, our information on such websites, on these digital media websites where one can find our friends easily. We put everything over there. In fact, one's entire CV can be found on the profile page of such websites. And if this information is misused by a couple of individuals or an organization, then we cry about spilt milk. There is no obligation to put your information on such websites. But do we understand why do we put information on such websites? Because it's a way of telling the world how far we have reached. Since time immemorial, human beings are individuals who want to show off, who want to say that I am better than the next individual. And these websites such give us this golden opportunity to put everything out there, and then when the information is misused or something happens, then we cry over spilt milk. So the question is, should we or should we not put such information out there? And that is a very thin line. If we don't put our information out there, we may be called as individuals who haven't adapted to the modern times. It's a very thin line. We don't know what is the exact thing one should do, despite the presence of such websites, of such pseudo social media websites where we can have access to our friends. Well, it's a very sensitive situation. If I don't put my information out there, then my profile may be perceived to be fake. But if the other individual puts their information over there, then the third individual who may have not done as well as the individual putting all their CV and resume on such websites may feel bad, and then we know what happens as the jealousy factor rises. There is no pertinent fixed solution to this, but let's get back to online shopping, which has been called addiction as well as mental illness. Do we understand why an individual shops online? Or let me give you an example. Before the advent of groceries coming online, that is, you can order your groceries just the way you can book your taxis or you can order your food. We used to call the nearest grocery shop through your phone. Means that was still a form of online shopping. Individuals, as far as it comes to shopping, have always been lazy. The only difference being about 3 decades ago, it was through the process of calling that shop and ordering your groceries and other assortments. Today, we can just do it by the click of a button on the website. The question remains the same. Do we trust the quality of the merchandise being sent by that particular shop? There is a slight difference. When you call and that individual comes, we can still exploit that situation by saying that this is not the correct product. Please take it back and bring it again. In the online world, it is not as easy, but if you overlook such minor infractions, then it is the same. Human beings in both these cases have been lazy. Now, let's talk about another form of online shopping. We order food. Well, remember before Zomato, where all your eateries, restaurants were on one website through the use of the menu cards. Before that, we used to have those physical menu cards. We have always ordered food, be it through calling the restaurant or using an intermediary like Zomato. But the idea has always been to order food, and this tradition has always continued. The method may have changed, but the idea of ordering food through menu cards, be it in your hand or through the applications on the website, the idea remains the same. We do not go to the restaurant. Individuals rarely go out. Going out becomes an event. You don't go out every day to the restaurant. You order food from your home. But today, we think that ordering online is a sort of an addiction. We also say that playing video games is also a sort of an addiction. And then today's researchers love adding the word mental illness to it. Well, let me tell you, I am also an avid gamer, which means that I also play video game, but I know when to play and when not to play. Neither is video game addiction a novel thing. It has always been there. But with the advent and the far reaching of the internet, now researchers feel that they can label anything and everything as addiction and a mental illness, and attributing everything to modern day lifestyle without understanding the definition of the word modern. But that's the way the contemporary times are. We think that we are smart when we use terms which go beyond the understanding of the common individual, and when you use such terms which are beyond the grasp and comprehension of such individuals, they look us as if we are so special. In fact, what the researchers are saying that be it 1980s, 1990s, the 2000s or the 2010, human beings have always been addicted to something or someone. Before the advent of mobile phones, we used to talk for hours on the landline, but nobody saw it as an addiction or as a lifestyle disease. But because the mobile phone emits radiation, there is a lot of light emitting from its screen and it affects our eyes. So we presume that it is bad for our health. And as a professor said, we over pathologize behavior without understanding the nuances of the word addiction. Only difference being that in the last 15 years, everything is available on every platform. Before that, the platforms were limited. Before Facebook, you had Yahoo Messenger. The idea was the same, to talk to unknown people or known people through messaging services. Yahoo Messenger was before WhatsApp came, but Yahoo Messenger never got the kind of attention WhatsApp did. Yet, Yahoo Messenger and WhatsApp were equally and are equally addictive. Now, because of WhatsApp messaging services, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and their so far clever marketing techniques which makes more and more people make their profiles on such platforms. Yahoo Messenger could not handle the competition, so it was shut down. So was Hangouts. What is Google Hangouts but a more refined version of WhatsApp? But because WhatsApp allows us a few more features like creating these temporary groups, we are hooked onto it. Otherwise, there is nothing special about the idea of WhatsApp or any such messaging services. In fact, you can say that WhatsApp, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook are like the cheese the mouse run towards. But when the mouse eats the cheese, it gets trapped in that mouse trap. Similarly, is the case with all these external or what we call over the top messaging services. We are so attracted towards it. It gives you this feeling of satiation. Then you come to know that if you want to access a few things, videos, they are only available on Twitter. The moment you make your profile, the entire world, as is the case, knows about it. When you access a few files or a videos on Twitter or on Facebook, then you are forced to use it like a normal human being. And that's how more and more people become users of such services. It's not a matter of pride that we have over million users in India or over the world. It's a matter of shame. There is no proclivity to use such services. Have you heard of the story of the Pied Piper, where this individual was called because there were a lot of mice in the city? He blew the pipe and the mice followed him, and therefore the mice ran away from the city. The same is the case with such platforms. This idea is put in our head that if you use such services, you will give your views, the government will listen to you, take you seriously, and work to solve your problems. And this is the way more and more individuals are attracted towards such platforms. But these things have nothing to do with addiction or mental illness. Mental illness and addiction are pure fiction. But let's see what the shopping disorder study says. According to the study published in the journal Comprehensive Psychiatry, BSD or buying shopping disorder affects almost 5% of adults in developed countries. Another discrimination. International Business Times reported that nearly 1 in 20 people are affected by BSD. Of these, 1 in 3 patients suffered from addiction to online purchasing. Well, I disagree with this theory. We have always been addicted to shopping, irrespective of how we do the shopping. PSD is characterized by an extreme preoccupation with and craving for shopping, as well as urges to own certain goods. Well, if it's the idea of urge, as human beings, since time immemorial, we have always been possessive about certain things. Humans, right from the way civilization began, right from the way we domesticated animals, we have always been materialistic. It has nothing to do with the era in which you live. Possessing a mere pen is also materialistic behavior. We do not want to part with our pen because we think that we bought that pen with such love. It's a pen that defines us. The watch is also a form of materialistic behavior, but for us, the idea of materialism stems the moment we have gadgets like laptops, mobile phones, etc. Well, this is a misguided philosophy. A monk is as much materialistic as an individual who is diametrically opposite to a monk. So the idea of being materialistic, the idea of having an addiction may differ from individual to individual, but addiction has always been there right from time immemorial. But why has this idea come now? Because the researchers who came up with this idea must have come up with this years ago, but now they have found a platform to get this idea to millions of individuals. And the irony is, they use the very same platform that they desist in their own research. One can say that online shopping does make one lazy, but when were human beings ever active? And this saga goes on and on and on and on. If you want to gain sympathy, then this is the best platform, even if nobody is interested in you. Suppose an individual who dominated the screen as an actor or a sports person for decades is now losing importance. They might come up with something, they might do something, be it philanthropic or something else, to get back the respect they had garnered over years. And then people will start following them again on such platforms, though we know the idea of following on such platforms is a farce, is a joke. If one has to understand what the online world has, then the pros weigh less than the cons. We have to talk about the words entertainment, education, and information. Then digital media or the online world, especially such pseudo platforms, they are not for information. They will never get to that part ever. In fact, one can replace information with gossip and rumor, and as human beings, we have always loved gossip and humor. But the only difference is that such platforms have, as one can say, spread the information so fast that it reaches all over the globe in minutes, and therefore, this is how misinformation, disinformation, malinformation, gossip, and rumor spreads. And human beings were always gullible, but now we don't even use the 5% of our intellect to understand whether the information that is coming to us is correct, or are we supposed to verify it. In that same context, let's talk about this sudden concern for pollution. Though we know that pollution has been a byproduct of thousands of years of neglect, it's not as if fog wasn't present. In fact, smog wasn't present 20 years ago or 30 years ago, but we as individuals had other things on our mind, so we never focused on smog or fog. But now that we are so free that we can focus on smog, fog, pollution, have our concern, have various agencies feign their concern about their efforts to reduce pollution when they know that they have also been at fault. Had those policies which we talk about today come even 30 years ago, these debates would have never happened. In fact, if there was no smog, then agencies like SUFFER or the Supreme Court or any other equivalent agency would have lost their importance. So, in a way, smog is getting these agencies into relevance. My first question is, why did we allow for more than 4 or 5 decades, or before that, industries using coal as a method of production when we know that it leads to a lot of pollution? Why did we not start changing our attitude, let's say 30 years ago? Because we were hesitant to solve the problem of pollution or spend money on pollution. And now, due to such excuses of not having the resources to buy the correct machinery to dispense of pollutants, we now suffer for it. And then come stopgap measures like installing air purifiers. Why do we need to install air purifiers? The same way we have water purifiers. I do not trust either of them. The entire idea of installing air purifiers means spending crores on such machinery is such a gullible and such a stopgap measure. What we need to look at is the design, the construction, and the material used in the construction of roads in India. Even sprinkling water on the roads is a stopgap measure, not a permanent solution. And we need to understand that this problem is not only restricted to the subcontinent. In fact, India is not the only country plagued by dust and other such pollutants. If you go to other countries, in fact, even Australia has a vast desert from the east to the west. No country is immune from dust, so even stopping construction is not going to work. It's not about banning construction, it's the material used in the construction. If cement is not a solution, then start using thermocol as walls. Environmental degradation is a fascinating term used by individuals, and I find this amusing. First, we need to accept that the pollution menace has been a result of over decades of ignorance, and now when we are at such a critical point, then we need to understand that we can change our attitude toward the things we consider pollutants or a menace. It has to be a gradual procession. The first thing first, crackers have to go, be it green crackers or be it the highly polluting crackers. Crackers as an overall ideology and linking it with festivals, this thing first has to be dealing. We have to understand that no country in the world will stop using coal as a source of fuel. Not today, not 100 years from now. Can we have a way where instead of the chimney jutting outwards, we can have a chimney where the pollutants go back inside the earth, where you can send it back into the earth? You can build pits where the coal or the smoke emerging from the coal industries or similar industries, the pollution goes back inside, but it doesn't mean that it goes into the water table. We produce a separate coal harvesting pit. If we want to reduce vehicular emissions, which we know why it happens, because the constant braking and using the accelerator also leads to such an issue. So what we have to do is stop this idea of bumper to bumper traffic. Make it very strict about following the lane. If that means during the vehicle test, when an individual comes to get their license, they have to take a test, make that test so stringent, so difficult that only 10 out of 100 individuals pass it. Make the questions also very difficult. For example, should you or should you not stop when you see pedestrians walking on the road or when they are crossing the road? The moment the authorities are strict about issuing licenses and the tests are stringent, people will automatically understand what they need to do. We need bigger, better constructed footpaths, we need subways, and we need overhead causeways. If you want people to use public transport such as taxis, buses, as well as trains, but if the distance from one's workplace or institute or home towards the bus stand, the train station is far, if one has to walk 5 kilometers, then people rather use your personal vehicles. But we need to understand that you cannot force everyone to use public transport. It has to be done in a very smart manner. Therefore, taxis have to become an essential part of public transport. They cannot be labeled under polluting vehicles. And we have to understand that pollution is mostly in our mind. As John Milton said, the mind is of its own. It can make a hell of heaven and a heaven of hell. The first ever day and night 5-day match starts very soon. So it is not the first ever day and night match overall. India has finally understood the need to have this match, but the reasoning and the logic behind having a day and night match is falsified. It is not because people don't come to watch the match. It has nothing to do with how long the match is, when the match is happening, what is the duration, but it is about the comfort of the people coming to watch a match. If there are so many pseudo security restrictions on what you can get inside a stadium, then nobody wants to come inside a stadium. For example, if you are not allowing bottles inside the stadium or umbrellas inside the stadium, but if it rains, you don't want the spectators to get drenched, then the solution is the authorities need to have a backup. If it rains in the match, every spectator watching the match should get a complimentary raincoat, all at the cost of the organizers and the stadium. Water bottles should also be provided inside the stadium, and it should also be free of cost, means it should be included in the ticketing cost. And instead of stands, grass bank should be encouraged. Watching a sports match should be like going for a picnic, not being in a concentration camp. And this is what the authorities fail to understand. They just blame 50 overs and 20 overs for the dwindling numbers in the 90 over matches. In fact, during the break, there should be a restaurant where people can go and eat, and the cost should be borne by the sports association and the organizer, or reduce the ticket costs, because if you are asking for nearly $100 per individual for a ticket, then you are doing nothing more than conning people. If one has to pay separately for food, for lodging, for transportation, then the ticketing cost has no meaning. If you want more people to come, then bus stations and train station, there should be a separate concourse under the stadium where spectators don't have to walk more than 100 meters to get inside the stadium. And if we cannot do that, then the special dignitaries we invite, the VIPs, they should also be made to walk. They cannot come in their cars, or they cannot have special privileges and walk right inside the stadium and be given all the facilities if the spectators on whose ticketing expenditure these individuals are enjoying their facilities do not get the same respect. In fact, just as the sports persons who are playing the match on a day come in a bus from their hotel towards the stadium, even the spectators should be given the same kind of respect. Means that if the spectators can have a kind of an understanding with the stadium authorities that if you can have lodging in these 4 hotels, and if you can book the registration for the buses, then the buses will come right to the doorstep of the hotel in which these individuals are lodged. They will take the individuals from different hotels to the stadium. After the match is over, the same bus will drop the spectators back to the respective hotels. And if you can do this, then only will you see people come. But if you cannot do this, then stopgap measures like day and night test match do not work. Now there is a debate whether Mohammad Shami is the best fast bowler in the world. Well, yes, but partially, because for me, Patrick Cummins from Australia is giving him an equal run for his money. While South Africa were a good team and were unlucky to lose, and Bangladesh also had their moments, the real test to the Indians will be given when the England team visits. And let me tell you, even the Australian team, the current Australian team, will give the Indian team a run for their money. The football qualifier India versus Oman is tomorrow. Let's hope that the current football team, the best football team ever to take the field in centuries, give Oman a run for their money. If India win their match, they go to 6 points and to number 3 above Afghanistan. So it will be a very interesting and a very important match. I hope you enjoyed episode number 131 on the 18th of November 2019. I will be back soon. Please send your valuable suggestions through your comments and audio recording to the email ID adityatherewriter@gmail.com. You can also like and subscribe to my YouTube channel and Facebook page, and stay tuned for the next episode.